welcome to this special segment of the Texas Values Report brought to you by Texas Values Action. We're going to talk about election results today in a little bit more detail and feature some of the key races where Texas Values Action endorsed and those candidates were successful. Was a pretty good night. 100% of the candidates that Texas Values Action endorsed statewide were successful in some very competitive runoffs. Now, a few of those runoffs were not really that close. We'll talk about that in detail throughout this show. But it's always good. All you need is one more than the other person, right? And sure, it's nice to say that you had some massive blowout, landslide victory and all that good stuff. And does that say something? Probably. But the goal is just to win one more. And so anything over that is welcomed. But so that's great. So whether someone won by a wide margin or not, the fact that they're moving forward to November was the goal, not just by winning by a wide margin. At least I would think so. And so, and look, that's our goal as an organization. When we endorse a candidate, we're hoping that that candidate will be successful. And that shows that we have confidence in that candidate. And by that candidate winning says we might know a little bit about making selections and endorsements and what is best for Texas voters and what Texas voters are looking for. But also I think it's an expression of how important the values are that we're working on. You know, when we make decisions about endorsements and candidates, they've got to line up with those values of faith, family, and freedom. And not only that, they've got to be leaders and demonstrated leaders on those issues that we're saying this is the best person. This is sort of the example. This is the standard bearer for our issues, and that's why we're choosing to endorse. We don't endorse in every race. We get dozens, if not hundreds, of requests for endorsements, okay? Most of those endorsements are going to be state-level positions, and then next, it's usually at the federal level, and then after that, at the local level. So we did endorse in all different levels this time around, and the overwhelming majority of those candidates did emerge victorious. And it came even more focused, though, this week with runoff elections with some big races, many of these races that got national attention. And so, but look, Texas House and Texas Senate, that is our bread and butter as an organization. That is where we work on policy a lot. So we're always going to prioritize those races. And one of the races that maybe didn't get a lot of attention statewide or nationally, but certainly got a lot of attention, it was important in the Harris County and Greater Houston area, was the runoff for House District 126. And the victor, the person who won, is the candidate that we endorsed, Stan Stanart, who's going to be our guest today on this special segment of the Texas Values Action Report. Somebody who we've worked with over the years and got pretty close to winning in March, but not quite. But now he has won, and he's headed to the November ballot. So representative-elect, I guess I can't quite say that yet. Mr. Stanart, congratulations and welcome to our Texas Values Action Report.
Thank you, Jonathan. Glad to be here. Really appreciate all that Texas Values does for the state of Texas.
Well, and we appreciate you putting yourself out there, again, being on the ballot. Now, you've been on the ballot numerous times before. You served as the Harris County Clerk for a 4-year term, 2 4-year terms in 2010 and then 2014. You were elected. But it's been a few years since then, but you and your wife, Gail, have been involved in grassroots level Republican and conservative efforts for many years. I know, according to my notes, you've been a delegate quite often, more than me, which is not a lot of people. I've been a delegate to the State Republican Party of Texas convention since 2008. It's starting to add up, my friend, but you've been at it more than I have. Well, listen, you've had a couple of days to digest this. How you feeling about your great victory?
I'm feeling good, and I'm so glad it's so strong. The runoff, while painful, is going to help us in November.
That's right.
And because I'm previously a Harris County Clerk, countywide elected official, I will help turn out strong in my district to help those who are countywides. We need lots of judges, lots of other conservatives winning.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. I mean, you know, that is one positive way to look at it. I try to take an optimistic approach to a lot of things when sometimes they don't go exactly the way you want, but pretty close, right? And so that is a good way to think about it. You know, a lot of money spent, and you think about that on the other side. You know, going into November, people being united, but also having a little bit more time to build their base. You getting the Republican nomination for the first time doesn't mean you haven't done things at the local level, but this is a higher level position, so it gives you a chance to interact with more voters, for them to learn more about you. I mean, good Lord, the turnout over the state was, for Republicans, just under 8%. And that's not a reflection of you, but I mean, that means statewide, 92% of Republicans that are registered did not go vote in the runoff. But which means there's still a lot of other people you can get to know. But I'm sure that more people got to know you over the years. Let's talk a little bit more about your background. You and your wife, Gail, have been very active in the greater Houston area for some years. I'm not going to hold it against you that you were born in Oklahoma and you have your degrees from there. And most of us won't. I know you've lived in Texas a good chunk of your life. But you were also active in the aerospace engineering industry, which is always fascinating, and certainly as it relates to the state of Texas and in the greater Houston area with Johnson Space Center in that area. But listen, you've been a stalwart for conservative politics and Republican politics for many years. I think it's great to have a grassroots activist now in a position to go to the Texas Capitol. By the way, forgive me if I don't already know the answer to this. Do you have an opponent in November?
Yes.
And if so, who is that opponent?
It's Stephanie Bond. She has no name ID, never ran for anything. But yes, I do have an opponent in November. This is a Republican district. We should be able to hold on to it, but I still will fight strong to have strong results and also to help the countywides.
And remind me, the seat was held before by
Sam Harless, who's retiring.
Who before that was his wife in the seat, Pam Harless, right?
No, it's not Pam. It's
oh my gosh,
Patricia.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, forgive me, former Representative Harless. It's been a few years since I've seen her, but so you've got some, some connection, some history there of that family in that position, the Harless family, and we've worked with both of them over the years. You've been around that area quite a bit.
30 years.
What is the percentage? What was the success for Stan last time? What do Republican numbers look like for that district as far as Sam, elections?
I mean, he probably get at least 60%. It's a 60% Orbis district.
Yeah.
So he usually he had no opponent in the primary in recent years because the Harlesses are pretty well entrenched in here.
Yeah. So what do you think were some of the keys to success for you in this race?
So many endorsements. I mean, you were one of the very first ones that came out and endorsed me. And,
well, Jessica Cologne would not have let me back in Houston if I hadn't,
Well, but at the same time.
I'm kidding, sort of. Right, Jessica?
Yeah.
No.
Well, then I ended up having the governor. I had the court, who's over most of this district. And then I picked up state reps, and by the runoff, I had 16 current state reps endorsing me.
That's fantastic. Well, when was it that the governor jumped on board? I don't remember. I know he did, but I don't remember when the timing was on that.
It was towards the first of the year. It was before the primary, and then Dan Patrick got on when we came to the runoff.
Well, look, I mean, I know that there are some differences of opinions that some Republicans have as far as the governor. I think that's in the minority, but when the governor endorses your election and the lieutenant governor, who lives in Houston and has been very active in that area as well, that's got to help a lot, I would think.
Oh, yeah. In fact, Betancourt and Patrick did a fundraiser. We had 130 people to sit down dinner.
Wow.
The governor did a fundraiser for me down within the Loop in Houston. Then he did another event in the district the week of the early voting.
So I'm from the Houston area, so I know what you mean by the Loop. What does the Loop mean for those other people that don't know?
San Felipe, right off the 610 Loop on San Felipe at Uzi's Kitchen.
Well, and I was there, right in that area. I should have called you on election night. Well, kind of. I got out of the Austin area kind of late. I was going to try to go by John Bunk's event, who was a congressional candidate that we also endorsed, taking over Wesley Hunt's seat. But my main objective was to get to the event for Mays Middleton. That is the race that we probably spent the most time on and had the most visibility as an organization in endorsing him. Yes. And I did make it to that event at the last minute, literally as he was leaving. There was a lot of bad weather coming out of Houston, and I just got out of the door later than I wanted to, and just did not make it into that part of Houston until almost 10 o'clock. But you can see with a picture there, I did have my MAGA Mays hat on and took a picture with him, and he did a little video for us and got to say congratulations to him in that race. But so I took the 610 loop over there to Kirby, to that area. Tell us a little bit about your district, though. Let's talk about the district and what's important to people out there in District 126.
It's above 1960, runs pretty much from 290 almost to 45, and it's just a suburban. It's one of the 24 state rep districts in Harris County. It was 124th my old district as the county clerk, and so it's got issues. There's flooding is an issue here, crime is an issue, property taxes are an issue. A lot of the things that are generic to a lot of other people across Harris County and the state. But my niche is elections, election integrity. I ran elections 8 years in Harris County. The last 3 years, I've been the vice chair of election integrity for the Harris County Republican Party. And so I'm on national election integrity calls, and that will be something unique that I bring to the House.
Well, and that's a good point. With your history in the Harris County Clerk's office and how important that position is, I mean, is Harris County the largest county in the state?
Oh, yes. We're the third largest in the nation.
In the nation, right? Yes. And I'm curious because I was looking at this recently. You've got Collin County is almost in the top 5. So you've got Harris would be the largest, and then Dallas County is next, I assume?
Yes.
And maybe in the top 5. Then you've got Bexar County in the greater San Antonio area, then maybe Fort Worth. And, boy, I'm trying to think, some of the larger counties. Maybe you've got Montgomery County in the top 10 around the areas. Now, is the district, does it go into Montgomery County at all, or is it just Harris County?
No, it's totally contained within Harris County. In fact, none of the districts cross boundaries in Harris County. There's 24 of them.
So what are some of the suburbs in that area? Do you touch Tomball at all? Does it get there?
Almost gets to Tomball. It goes
Cypress?
right by. Yeah, it goes right by go to Cypress.
Jersey Village?
Willowbrook Mall. Which one?
Jersey Village? Does it touch that a little bit?
No, it doesn't go that far south. No. It stays above 1960 when it comes up to 290.
Okay. No, that helps. And I take that area a lot. Coming in through 290. Growing area, massive.
It's exploding out there.
Is Bridgeland, that big development, is that part of the district at all?
No. It stops. It doesn't go very far north of 1960 along 290 at all.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Well, that helps. And look, I mean, I know we're talking a little bit of Houston stuff for people out there, but all these different communities are really big parts of that area. And when you compare them to other parts of the state, big population in those areas. And a lot of growth in those areas is too. But I know you've got some great school board members in a lot of those areas too, because we've interacted with some of them at the local level. And there's been a lot of focus on that, about what's being taught in public schools, what's happening in that environment. I know those issues are important to you as well.
Oh, yes. Yeah. We the Harris County Republican Party has worked real hard to try to get people elected to those school boards because the left pretty much likes to control school boards.
Well, that's where they've been having a big influence, not just in Texas, but across the country over many decades.
Exactly. Most definitely.
One of the entities that we're not big fans of is Texas Association of School Boards, and they really have a monopoly, close to it feels like. They service all of these school districts. They're not a government entity, but a lot of times I think public school districts feel like they don't really have any other options when they need some type of logistical support or legal support. But that entity tends to lean left for sure, and a lot of times encourages school districts to do things that go against some of the work we're doing. The Texas Ten Commandments law, keeping DEI and some of these things out of the schools. All right, let's talk about your wife for a second, because I know she had a lot to do
Yeah.
with this election, and she's been a friend of ours for many years. And didn't
Yes.
she run? Did she run for this
Yes.
position before?
She
When
ran
was
for
it?
Sam when he first ran. And
Yeah,
she and another person. So it was a three-way race, and her mom got a little sick during that time, so she
yeah.
didn't get as much effort into it. But yeah, she ran for it too.
So
So,
finally, a breakthrough. But I'm sure it was a
well,
team effort. She's great.
yeah, she's my secret weapon. We go to events and things. She can work a room better than I can, better than anybody I know.
Well, and I appreciate that too, because as I mentioned, I'm from Houston, go to that area a lot, spend time in that area, being the largest, metropolitan area in the state, to your point, one of the biggest in the country,
Yes.
and not that far from Austin. But over the years, I've got to know a lot of the different people at the grassroots level, whether they've run for office or not.
Right.
Some of them have. Sometimes it's at different events. I've spoken at the Cherry Tree Republican Club and many of the other clubs around there
Oh yeah.
numerous times, and then we'll see each other at conventions. But some of the things that we've done battle against, the city of Houston and others over the
Yes.
years, have been a big part of this. And it's interesting too, because Harris County has been a little tricky on whether or not you're going to have conservative representation, whether or not Republicans are going to have a big influence and say. And some of that can do with who's in the leadership of the Harris County Republican Party chair position. But I do think the votes are still there in the county when more people show up, when Republican voters and conservative voters show up.
Oh,
I think there's still good reasons to be optimistic about that area of the state.
totally. When I got swept out of office in 2018, I lost by a huge amount, just like everybody else. And then there was the person who replaced me. She quit. The special election, I did about the same. But in 2022, I did 80,000 more votes difference between me and my opponent, and we were winning some judges countywide. It is getting competitive now in Harris County. In 22, we won some more judges. So it is possible we could win in Harris County. Just got to work very hard.
Yeah, I see Orlando Sanchez is moving forward in his race,
Yes.
from the runoffs last week at a county level position. County clerk? No, I mean judge?
Yeah,
County
county
judge?
judge. He's running for county judge. What's amazing, Annise Parker lost her Democratic primary. And that's the one who had the name ID.
I did not notice that, but I saw there was a post on social media
Yeah.
where she was all, gnash teeth and mad about something. I didn't
Yeah.
read the rest of it. Where she was making, like blaming voters and all this stuff, and I was like,
Oh,
oh, now I see.
It's hilarious.
Interesting.
Orlando does not have to run against her, which is a huge advantage, I believe, for November.
Oh my gosh. And look, you remember, this, but I'll remind our listeners and viewers, she was the mayor of Houston at the time who led the effort to have a bathroom ordinance which would have forced public and private entities to allow men and women's bathrooms. And, kind of a bathroom reference, we wiped the floor with that ordinance, right? I mean, we defeated that ordinance 6139, but she led the effort and then shortly thereafter sort of exited the greater Houston community. And so a couple years ago, we were hearing, oh, she's coming back. She's going to run for office. I guess that didn't work out too well. I mean, look, when you win, you lose your biggest issue, 6139, you lose that. You have to believe, or it's got to send a message to you, you're probably not going to have another successful election. So she found out the hard way, I guess. And, there's no love lost for me, or I'm not going to feel bad for her on that. Not that I wish her any harm, but, she did it to herself. I mean, this is an issue that even Democrats are on board with us about these days. All right, we're going to lose you in just a minute. But what are you hearing? What were you hearing from voters? And what do you think is the key for your success moving towards November?
Well, they do want property tax relief. You hear that a lot. They are concerned about crime. And it's just the things that the Republican Party run on. And I think it's going to be very effective for November. We've got a great slate of candidates, the one who will be representing us. We must come together as one big family in November. So I'm looking forward to working with you, and we're looking forward to every Republican that wants to improve Texas.
Well, congratulations on your victory. It was a joy and honor to have you as one of our endorsed candidates. Certainly, we're rooting for you, and no surprise that you were successful. And also, I may see you before then, but if I don't, we will have a booth at the Republican Party of Texas convention. So I will see you then for sure, if not before that. But
Yes.
congratulations to Stan Stanart on his victory, being the Republican nominee for House District 126, a Texas Values endorsed candidate. And we'll look forward to seeing you again soon, Stan. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Have a blessed day.
All right, I got a few minutes too. I mean, I guess I could take as long as I want, right? We could just stay on Facebook all day. Who wants to go for another hour? No, I have other things to do. Okay, let me recap. We did a special election video yesterday, but that was really for Texas Values, just sort of giving some overview about the races. I'm going to get into some more detail about what we did, Texas Values Action, as a difference, right? So the two different entities, Texas Values is our C3 organization, Texas Values Action is our C4. Separate entities, we make separate decisions, but we endorse in races with Texas Values Action as a 501c4. We had a great night, okay? And really, I'm not going to take a lot of credit. The candidates did really the hard work. We did participate in this circumstance as well in these races as far as publicizing our endorsement and giving good reasons why we had confidence in those candidates. But it's always nice to feel like, you know, the candidates that you're endorsing are the ones that voters are resonating with and that they win. And so 100% of the statewide candidates that we endorse did win. And not that it was a huge number. There were 3 statewide races that we got involved in. And really, we won in almost every race except one, the congressional seat that Briscoe Cain ran against. I think that surprised a lot of people to see the difference in how that race turned out. It wasn't even close. Certainly Trump endorsing Alex Mueller, which I will say didn't know a whole lot about her, and I don't know that we had a lot of interaction from her on any of our issues before that. But, it is what it is. That's what the voters decided to do. Briscoe Cain, we've known for a long time, state House member, and incredible pro-life history for him in advocacy, election work, religious freedom, you name it. And the guy and I had known each other before that. He was an activist before he ran for office. But listen, this is what the voters wanted, why it is that Trump endorsed her and not Briscoe. I don't have the details on that. I know that Governor Abbott endorsed Briscoe, and anytime you jump into a bigger race, though, because he was a House member, and then you jump into a congressional seat, you got to win over some new voters, and it didn't seem to work out. I know there were some people that were still upset with Briscoe Cain about his role in the impeachment of Ken Paxton in that committee many years ago, but I realize that still matters to voters. The way we look at it is it's a host of issues, and rarely is it going to come down to one thing. That issue, while certainly was important and relevant during that time period. I even said that day, if I had been on the House floor, I would not have voted for impeachment of Ken Paxton, particularly with the process that was used and the way it was rushed. But I do think when we look at endorsements, we're looking at a lot of different issues. Briscoe Cain was one of the highest scoring members of the Texas House ever in the work that we do. And I think that says something, and that's why we were confident about endorsing him. But really, there really weren't any opportunities or very little opportunities for us to interact with the other candidate. Didn't really hear from her. And that's not me saying negative. That's just letting our supporters know what our process was like. And had we heard more and demonstrated more, would the circumstances have been different? I don't know. But that wasn't really on the table. And so, but look, these other races that we're involved in were massive. I mean, a lot of focus on us publicizing our endorsements was on the Attorney General's race. Huge victory for Mays Middleton. I mean, an absolute massive victory, just about a landslide. And I'm not trying to pile on to Chip Roy. 56-44. I mean, he ran Mays Middleton. He won by 14 percentage points. And I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of votes. I'll look at the raw numbers in a minute. Maybe I have them here. Hold on a second. Let me see. Well, I don't know how this is organized. I'm not trying to pick on Ashley. Where is the Attorney General's race? Okay, I cannot see it on here. It's at the top, but what? Oh, I see what happened here. The page got cut off differently. Okay, I guess it ended up being 55.5 or so to 44 when the numbers were totaled. 755,000 for Middleton, about 612 for Roy, so about 130,000. The top of the votes for Republicans was 1.387 million. That was in the U.S. Senate race. So it looked like, it's interesting to you dive into some of these numbers. About 20,000 voters went from I'm voting in the U.S. Senate race and then did not vote in the Texas Attorney General's race. And then you go down to some of the other races, the Railroad Commission race, which was also a statewide race. You had 70,000 voters who voted in the Senate race, that didn't vote in the Railroad Commission race. And then you go down to the next level, if you will, Texas Court of Criminal Appeals, which was a statewide race. When we endorsed Thomas Smith, he did end up winning. We endorsed Beau French in the Railroad Commission race. He ended up winning in that race as well. Those were our 3 statewide races where we endorsed in. But in the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals race, the total votes were 1.238. So about 150,000 people who did not vote or who voted in the U.S. Senate race for Texas between Ken Paxton and John Cornyn didn't vote in the other statewide race, the Texas. And so, that could have made a difference in some of these races. I mean, look at Beau French's race. The difference was Beau French won by a small margin, 50.5 to 49.5, but the raw vote number was about 117 or 18. I'm sorry, what am I saying? About less than 20,000. So about 17,000 votes or so was the difference. Those people that dropped off could have made a difference in that race. I'm not saying they should have. I'm just saying it could have swung that race. It is interesting. We talked about this some of voter fatigue, but going from one race to the second race, that's not really a symbolism of fatigue or an indication of fatigue. And voting in 3 races and just one is not getting fatigue. Fatigue is sometimes in March or November when there's like 60 people on the ballot and you've got to start at 1 and make your all the way down, right? But just going from the U.S. Senate down to the Texas Attorney General's race or the Railroad Commission race, I don't think that's voter fatigue. I think maybe those people, people didn't know as much about that race. There's no doubt the U.S. Senate race got the most attention, heads and shoulders by far with all the money spent. But there was a lot of attention, certainly later, as we got into the runoff on the Attorney General's race. We did a lot of work to educate and create more visibility, too. So not much of a drop-off there, 20,000 votes. But enough to notice. The bigger drop was going to the Railroad Commission race and the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals. Nonetheless, it's just interesting to think about that, right, and the difference that can make in an election. And that turnout on the Republican side, it was even lower on the Democratic side. We'll talk about that in just a second. But on the Republican side was less than 8%. And this is not a criticism of anyone. Please do not hear me wrong on this, okay? I understand people have a lot of things to do. People's lives are going different directions. But we say it all the time. Government belongs to those who show up. You want somebody in office, you want your values represented in government because they're the ones making a lot of these decisions and impacting culture. It really matters. That's why we're in the work that we do, because we know it impacts our lives and we want a reflection of our values in law and policy. All right. So when less than 8% people show up, guess who's deciding what those values look like? That 7.5%, 8% of people. And we know that we're not going to get 100% turnout. It'd be great, but to see such a turnout, but I don't know that we've ever seen that, right? So we anticipate as an organization that turnout's going to be low, which is why, raise your hand if you got a text message, email, or phone call from us bugging you about going to vote, and you're like, why do they keep calling me? Because we know, statistically, the data says it takes 11 or 12 times to contact, touch, or whatever somebody to remind them to vote. That actually relates to them voting, right? So, could we do a better job because there was such a low turnout? Sure. But, we don't have every registered voter on our email list or phone list or text message. So we're reaching out to a smaller portion of people. I'd love to find the data, if it were to exist, with the level all of our supporters and who and what percentage of them actually voted. It'd be difficult to figure that information out. I know sometimes people will produce a number like that sort of anecdotally. Nonetheless, the U.S. Senate race got the most attention, rightly so, and Ken Paxton won in a landslide. He just about doubled up on, on John Cornyn. Where are my notes here? Where is the U.S. Senate race? 63-36, almost 64, 885,000 votes for Paxton and some change, 501,000 for Cornyn. Again, Paxton almost got twice the amount of votes as Cornyn. Maybe not close, pretty close, okay? Fairly close, all right? That is what? If I can do the quick math here, a 28-point victory for Paxton. That says something, does it not? That the overwhelming majority, and again, of the ones that voted, but that is a reflection of the Republican Party and Republican voters. Whether people like it or not, that's what that says. that an overwhelming majority of them said, we're done with Cornyn, or he's not the guy, Paxton's the guy. And because there's a lot of questions have come up, or people have mentioned, sometimes the left, people on the right have mentioned this, some supporters of ours. Yeah, but how is Paxton going to do in the general election? Because we know that, people think, a lot of moderates and so on don't like him for whatever reasons. I don't know that that's accurate. I don't know that we're going to see that. If we were to see a difference in how Paxton might perform versus how Cornyn would have performed, I've been telling people I think it's a very small amount if it really exists. And I think even less so now. When you look at the results on Tuesday, I mean, Paxton clearly has the majority, the momentum, and the trust and confidence of the voters that are Republican that are most likely to show up at the ballot and vote. Now, there'll be more of them in November because most people don't pay as much attention in the primaries. They're going to think more about I vote in November and all those things that are going to go into that are going to factor into that. Statistically, that is usually what's going to happen. But the voters that you can count on the most are the ones that showed up at the runoff election, right? They took the extra time to vote several different times once they got to May in this election. So I think it's fair to say those are the ones that you can most likely count on. They're going to show up in November. And they, overwhelmingly are very confident. Now, I haven't seen all the statements that have been made. Maybe Cornyn has already said, we're going to unite behind Ken or whoever's on the ballot. I would imagine he says something like that. So once you get that sort of, all together moving towards November, it's just more momentum that I think you'll see Paxton have. And look, Tallarico is a complete disaster. Okay, we can create that as a graphic too, by the way, Ashley, if you want. I think that would do quite well. James Tallarico is a complete disaster, even for Democrats, and I'm making light of it. This is who he is. I mean, the guy's views are very extreme, and the fact that this is what Democrats have picked as their nominee says something as well. I mean, the Democratic Party in the state of Texas is, it unraveled several years ago, but it seems to still be in complete disarray. Now, you don't want to take that for granted if you're a Republican voter going into November, or you're somewhere in the middle and you don't want the values of James Tallarico to be representing our state. I surely don't. But it is a representation of where that party is in Texas, and that's why they keep losing a lot of elections. All right, don't take it for granted, but a lot of Republican House members have switched from Democratic Party to Republican Party, right? And I could go through the list for you. If I had created it before the show, it would be much easier. But there are several of them out there, many of them towards the South Texas area. But nonetheless, and you've seen some huge gains by Republicans in South Texas, an area that often, if not almost entirely in Texas history, has predominantly voted Democrat. Not only are the candidates changing, or the elected officials changing parties to Republican, the voters are switching from Democrat to Republican. We saw that in the presidential election, where one of the counties on the border, and I'm forgetting it, Webb County and some others, had never voted Republican before, sort of majority as a county in a presidential election. I think it'd been 100 years, and they did, right? And so, but a lot of that, in my opinion, and I think there's good reason for me to say this and evidence that backs it up, is that these leaders in the Democratic Party are really so far to the left, they're completely out of touch of what the general public is saying on a variety of issues, and they've allowed the special interest of the transgender, LGBT lobby, abortion for any reason and however we can do it, and pay for, use government money to do it, fly girls, women to other states so they can kill their baby while somebody's spending money babysitting their other kids. I mean, that's what they're doing. That's what San Antonio was trying to do, okay? Voters are saying, this is not what we want in the state of Texas. I mean, Tallarico himself says God is non-binary, says that there are 6 different sexes or genders. Somebody asked me, which one do you think he is, of which gender? I said, I think maybe he's all 6. Okay, I don't know. I mean, this is just, and it seems kind of silly. These are things that he has said, though. These are his views. And I will tell you all this, okay? We haven't had to spend a lot of time talking about Tallarico because, that's really about what's going to happen in November. We talked a lot about candidates that we're endorsing in the primary selection process. But we've got a lot to say because we have a lot of experience with him. Okay, our organization, when we are at the state capitol testifying on bills, when we have lobbied for and against legislation, we run into him all the time. And I'll tell you, of any Okay, and we try to maintain a working, polite, and respectful relationship to all members of the state legislature, whether they're Republican or Democrat. Even though we know majority of the time, very few Democrats agree with us, but usually that's reciprocated. Even though some of them really don't like us on the Democratic side when they see us at the Capitol and so on, it's not, it's very, it's not often at all. It's very rare that even the Democrats, members of the House and Senate, are rude to us. And I appreciate that. We're not there to make enemies, and we're not there to get personal with people. It's about policy. All right? And so I know where they stand. They know where we stand. But James Tallarico is without a doubt one of the members of the Texas House and the Democrat that has been the most hostile, if not disrespectful, and cross the line sometimes on members of our team. Okay? And you haven't heard me talk a lot about it before, because whether or not it was necessary or not, that is something that we talk about and move on and spend our time doing anything else. It comes into focus now, though, okay, as him being potentially the representative for the state of Texas in the U.S. Senate, okay, that's how it's been. When we've talked about the issues we've worked on, and sometimes I think he's crossed the line and it's been a little rude personally towards members of our team. But I digress. On the policy issues, he's the one attacking us. I mean, you saw how he interacted with Candy Noble on the Texas 10 Commandments law when that law was being debated on the Texas House floor. She did an amazing job of deflecting a lot of that and defending the law and not letting some of the, rude and sort of over-the-top things that he was saying about, his so-called beliefs, as a Christian. And look, I'm not usually in a position where I'm trying to say someone is Christian or not. I'm not God. I'm not in people's hearts and all that kind of stuff. I will say with a lot of confidence that his interpretation, if you will, of what the Bible says and doesn't say and so on, particularly on issues of pro-life, religious freedom, marriage, all of that, I don't know what he's reading, okay? But you'd have a hard time convincing me it's the Bible or any version of the Bible that's out there. Now, I will say this, okay, and I hadn't thought about this as well. Where's this Bible at? we received, or we somehow came across this Bible. I shouldn't even say this book, okay, that would like to call itself a Bible. That was it, the transgender Bible or the rainbow LGBT love is love Bible? I don't remember exactly the title of it, but it was wrapped in rainbow colors, and we'll have to dig that thing up. It may be in my office somewhere. And I don't know what was in it. I didn't even want to look past the cover, okay? Because I felt like, I had to pray and ask for forgiveness after that. But so there may be some stuff out there like that he is calling a Bible. But yeah, that's not what that is. But that's going to lead a lot of people to think about this and ask these questions, because he comes across or wants you to believe that he is some type of religious or biblical scholar. I forget what some of his background is. I'll look back at that later, whether he tries to, give some credence to that or some strength to that in his history. But he comes across in a very way that I think a lot of people, think that he's believable, and that's dangerous, okay? James Tallarico is very dangerous for the state of Texas for a variety of reasons. The issues that our listeners care about in the majority of Texas, faith, family, and freedom, they are all in jeopardy, all right? They're all in jeopardy of becoming extinct and becoming flipped upside down if James Tallarico would be able to become the U.S. Senator for the state of Texas. Now, I know Ted Cruz, if that were to happen, he would still be our other senator and would be doing everything he could to limit the damage that James Tallarico might try to do as our U.S. Senate. But do not take this election lightly. And do not think that Ken Paxton is just going to walk into victory and James Tallarico is so laughable on these issues that clearly nobody would vote for him. Oh, people will vote for him. There may be some Republicans that decide to vote for him. So don't take any of that for granted, all right? Huge election. There's a lot of time to get into that before November. But the Republicans have picked their people. Democrats have picked their people. Speaking of the Democrats, they selected Nathan Johnson for the Texas Attorney General's office. Texas Values Action endorsed candidate Mays Middleton won. I talked about that just a minute ago. We did put out a press statement and try to be gracious and polite about Chip Roy. He does have a relevant role on faith, family, and freedom, and those have been issues he's always cared about. And we think that's important for him to continue to have that role in the state of Texas, and we look forward to having that working relationship that we've had with him for over a decade or so. But Nathan Johnson is also a member of the Texas Senate. We've got some good clips out there of him and Mays Middleton debating different issues on the Texas Senate floor. You can go back and look at it. You can go back and look at Nathan Johnson's record, right? I mean, I'm not saying that he's James Tallarico, but I imagine his voting record's pretty similar. And he's spoken publicly in opposition to religious freedom laws, in opposition to the Texas 10 Commandments law, in opposition to pro-life laws. Nathan Johnson has. In opposition, Nathan Johnson has spoke and has a voting record of being against laws that protect men being in women's bathrooms, showers, and locker rooms. He voted against, well, let me check my data. I can't imagine that he was on this side, but, being hostile to protecting girls from having men compete against them in women's sports. You know what? I'm just going to fact check myself, all right? Because, and you should do this too, if you go to our website, txvaluesaction.org, you can see the scorecard of these candidates, including Nathan Johnson, and see where he was on these issues. So let's just go there right now, txvaluesaction.org. Okay, I can't even type in my own website. Okay, and we'll go to our scorecard from the front page, Faith and Family Scorecard. Go to View Scorecard. We'll click the tab Texas Senate. Where is Senator Johnson? He is at 5%. What did he do that was somehow allowed him to even get 5%? He voted on State Board of Education to keep their, authority to not be appointed so people could still vote for them. 10 Commandments law, voted against it. The Texas Women's Privacy Act, voted against it. Let's go back. The bill to have protections against the chemical abortion pill come through the mail, voted against it. Religious freedom for attorneys, voted against it. Nathan Johnson did. Parental Bill of Rights, Senate Bill 12, voted against it. Detransitioners having insurance coverage if they've started a transition but wanted to come out of it, to have that protection insurance, voted against it. I guess he's okay with harmful books in school libraries, pornographic books. He voted against that bill to stop those things, Senate Bill 13. Drag queen story time, Senate Bill 18. That makes it clear kids should not be at these events with drag queens. Nathan Johnson voted against that bill. And that's just 2025. I can go back to 2023. Speaking of the Save Women's Sports issue, let's see where Senator Johnson was on that issue. 0. He got a 0% for his score. I can't see all the data. Our link doesn't let us go back to the data from that, but that included the Save Women's Sports law for for collegiate level. So that means he didn't vote for that protection either. Big elections coming up in November. But congratulations to the Texas Values Action endorsed candidates, and also congratulations to Attorney General Ken Paxton. We did not endorse in that race. I'm not going to get into all the details about that. You can see us talked about our website. We had endorsed Ken Paxton earlier last year. When some of the things about his personal life came out last summer, we did withdraw our endorsement, but really haven't talked about that race since. We let the voters decide that, push people to ratings, and let them decide of what that's best. That had a lot to do with our standards when we come to endorsing candidates, but in no way did it mean that we didn't think people should vote for him or vote their conscience on these type of issues. We'll be taking a look at that again, though, as we move forward now out of the nominee phase into November, because there's a clear difference in those candidates. I mean, it's not even close. I mean, the difference between Ken Paxton and Tallarico is day and night, right? And so, and this is a huge race for the state. Even though our focus is mainly on the state level, what happens at the federal level is no doubt can impact us. It's going to be very important. But these are big races. The Attorney General's race, that office has 750 employees that are lawyers. 3,000 total employees. So you talk about the impact that the Attorney General's office can have over the state, and is the top person that's in charge, the office in charge of enforcing our state laws, which matter a lot to us as we are experts. We focus a lot and specialize a lot on passing state laws that we want to make sure they're enforced. Okay, so, and we've had a great working relationship with Senator Mays Middleton over the years. He led the effort to pass the Texas Women's Privacy Act. He led the effort to pass the Save Women's Sports issue at the collegiate level, made sure those bills had strong enforcement, and has continued to be a voice on those issues. Not only that, strong support of the Texas Ten Commandments law, passed his own religious freedom bill for protection of employees to have their right to pray when appropriate. Many reasons. Go to our website, txvaluesaction.org. Really cool article called Who is Mays Middleton that we wrote much earlier in the year where a lot of people are getting to know him. I wanted to provide that detail. But this is a massive victory for MAGA Mays Middleton and really for these issues in Texas, as we said in our press statement. And I think moving forward, Mays Middleton has a ton of momentum. I think the people that were supporting Chip Roy will come behind him, as well as some national leaders and state leaders as well. So I think that all comes together. But Mays Middleton had some incredibly strong endorsements going into that runoff, which I'm sure helped him quite a bit. Not only our organization, tons of organizations, the lieutenant governor, and some spokespeople, I guess, for President Trump, how you would characterize some of those folks that were campaigning with Mays Middleton late over last weekend and into this week. But thank you to all the voters, okay? Even though it was a low percentage, I want to believe that a high percentage of our supporters did go out and vote. We got tremendous amount of text messages, emails, all kinds of nice notes from people thanking us for participating in the process, providing information that they could use. So when they were making their decision to vote, they had that information. And so I really appreciate that. Got a lot of text messages last week and this week on Tuesday, people still trying to figure it out. Hey, who should I vote for? Who do y'all recommend? How can I get information? And so we really appreciate those kind notes and that expression of value in what we do. And that's what it's all about for us. How can we create value for the voters of Texas, the people that care about faith, family, and freedom, and put them in a better position when they're going to make these decisions? So if you saw value in our work, then you should make a donation to Texas Values Action. It is harder for us to raise money for the C4, the 501c4 Texas Values Action, than our 501c3, okay? Now, a smaller portion of, when you look at the two entities of those budgets, the budget for the 501c4 is smaller, but that doesn't mean that we don't need your funds. And that entity, just like the 501c3, has a budget end, a fiscal year end at the end of June 30th. Okay, so if you like some of the work we did over the election cycle thus far, please make a donation. Now, those donations to Texas Values Action are not tax deductible, but they are confidential. So it's not like you have to turn over your information to the IRS because you donate to us. That's something that we protect very strongly. Of course, we do as First Amendment lawyers, myself as a First Amendment lawyer, constitutional lawyer. But please give generously because it's not over. Okay, we've got the Republican Party of Texas convention coming up where we're going to really be a voice for these values in that process. We've got a booth. We're moving towards November. I'm already talking about James Tallarico, okay, when we haven't really talked about him a lot before in that U.S. Senate race. And then you got the Attorney General's race and many others that will continue to be endorsing it and being in a lot more races that come into focus as we go towards November. That means we've got to continue to spend money and be involved in educating voters and getting this information out there. And in order to do that, it takes funds. Please make a donation today, txvaluesaction.org. That's how the values of faith, family, and freedom can be put into action in the state of Texas. And that does it for today on this special edition of the Texas Values Report, brought to you by Texas Values Action. And we'll talk to you next week on the Texas Values Report.